The first person to die after eating at Owale's canteen wasn't even her customer. It was the woman who mocked her the loudest, Mama Bridget, who told everyone at the mechanic junction, "No responsible woman will cook food beside a mortuary. It's not just nonsense, it's an abomination." 2 days later, they found Mama Bridget stiff in her chair, face frozen mid-sentence, with half a plate of Owale's spaghetti untouched on her table. By the end of the week, 3 more people were dead. But here's the part that would make anyone question reality. Each of those people had one thing in common. They had all once refused to pay Owale for her food, or spread lies that her ingredients were from the mortuary freezer. Still, her canteen only grew bigger, and the line got longer. Asaba people started whispering, "Maybe the dead are the ones buying it." Others asked, "Is she cooking food or revenge?" But Owale never said a word. She just kept smiling, kept cooking. And every morning at 5 a.m., she opened her canteen beside that white building with "Mortuary" boldly painted across it, like death was her neighbor, and food was her weapon. You're watching African Tales by Imade, where every story leaves you shaken and every truth hits deep. Now sit back and get ready, because what you're about to hear is not just a story. It's a warning. Before the canteen, before the mortuary, before the whispers, Owale was someone's wife. And to the world, she was the lucky one, because her husband, Monday Obasogi, was the kind of man mothers prayed their daughters would marry, on the outside. He was neat, always ironed his shirts twice, always quoted Bible verses, always called her "my queen" in public. But behind closed doors, he was the kind of husband that made silence feel safer than conversation. He didn't hit her every day. He knew better. He hit her when it would be least expected, after helping her carry a bucket, after kissing her forehead, after thanking her for the stew. Then he would find a reason, a tone, a towel left on the wrong hanger, a forgotten ingredient in his breakfast, a cough too loud at night. "Are you mad? You dey try me, Owale? Is it me you want to disgrace in this compound?" And just like that, the beautiful Osubor girl from Ibusa, the one who used to be first in her class and dreamt of owning a restaurant in Dubai, became a punching bag wrapped in wedding ring. But she stayed. Why? Because of her daughter, Edesiri, her everything. Only 5 years old, with big eyes and a voice like breeze, and because, like many Nigerian women, she told herself, maybe tomorrow he will change. Maybe it's just pressure. Maybe if I pray harder. Until the night that changed everything. It was a Sunday. The rice had burned. She didn't even hear him coming. 1 minute she was rinsing the burnt pot behind the house. The next she felt her head slam against the wall. When she opened her eyes, Edesiri was standing in the corner, holding her doll, watching quietly, blood dripping from her mother's nose. That was the night Owale stopped praying for her marriage. That was the night she stopped hoping for tomorrow. That was the night she packed her bloodied wrapper, wrapped her child on her back, and left Onitsha at 3:12 a.m. with only 6,200 naira in her bag. When Owale arrived in Asaba, she had nothing but her child and a bitter kind of hope that burns like kerosene. She squatted with her aunt for a while, Auntie Voka, a loud, judgmental widow who sold tomatoes and rumors at Ogbogonogo Market. But 2 weeks later, Auntie Voka said, "I can't be keeping husband snatchers in my house, oh. My pastor said bad energy day this compound." So Owale left again, with Edesiri tied on her back and shame choking her chest like wrapper too tight. She walked from Koka to Okpanam, begging for cleaning jobs. She offered to wash clothes, scrub floors, cook soup. Nothing stable came. Until one man, Baba Idue, a carpenter, pointed her to a small open space with a zinc roof and broken concrete floor just opposite the government mortuary in Umuonaje. The owner won rent for food people, Baba Idue said, but nobody wants to take it because of the mortuary at the back. She asked how much. 3,000 naira a month. She paused. 3,000? She could pay that. So she asked him, "Why is it so cheap?" And he shrugged. "Because it's near a mortuary. Everyone is afraid of death. The death we will all still experience." She didn't laugh. She paid for 3 months in advance. When she opened the canteen, people laughed. Women mocked her. Men whistled and called it Death Kitchen. Even Edasiri asked, "Mummy, why are those people wearing white coats going into that house with black glass?" Aule said, "That's where sick people go to sleep." But deep down, she knew the truth. She saw the sign clearly. Delta State Central Mortuary, authorized personnel only. She knew it, and yet, she still washed the floors, hung her open sign, borrowed a table and 1 pot from Mama Osadiayi, who ran the suya spot at the corner. And the next morning, she started. She cooked the only thing she had perfected since she was 15, spaghetti, simple, salty, steamy, spiced with pepper and onions and love, nothing fancy, but it filled the air. The first customer came, then another, until people started saying, "That spaghetti near mortuary, they burst brain." What they didn't know was, every night after cooking, Aule would sit on the bench and ask herself one question: am I feeding the living or something else? Because sometimes she saw people eating who never spoke, never blinked, never came back. And one day, she saw someone who looked like Monday, her ex-husband, sitting alone in the corner with blood on his neck, eating slowly. The first sign that things were changing came quietly, not through accidents or omens, but through whispers. At first, Aule had thought she could ignore them. The giggles, the hushed conversations, the awkward silence whenever she passed by a group of women with baskets on their heads or satchels of vegetables. But gossip, like smoke, always found a way to rise. People talked. They didn't just talk. They judged. They judged the woman who dared to fry stew beside a building filled with corpses. The woman who smiled too much despite her proximity to death. The woman whose spaghetti somehow tasted better than anyone else's. It was unnatural, they said. Too flavorful. Too consistent. Too addictive. One afternoon, as she was wiping down her tables after the lunch rush, she overheard 2 women arguing across the road. "I told you she uses something. Haven't you noticed the way the aroma lingers even after she closes?" "Then why do you keep buying?" "Because I can't help it. But one day I'll stop, before it's too late." Aule didn't flinch. She kept cleaning. But inside, her chest tightened. Later that week, a man came to her shop. He wore a brown shirt tucked neatly into his black trousers and held a thin folder under his arm. He smiled kindly, introduced himself as Mr. Etim from the State Public Health Department, and asked for a plate of spaghetti. Nothing unusual. He ate slowly, complimented her seasoning, and wiped his mouth carefully before leaning forward. "Madam Aule," he said in a soft voice, "I'm not here officially. Not yet. I'm just doing my job as a citizen." She looked up from her dishwashing tray. "Okay? People are saying things, subtle things, about your food, the location, the building behind." Aule's heart sank. "What kind of things?" "Nothing you need to panic about. But people are filing anonymous complaints, mostly spiritual accusations, nothing medically proven. But in this country, you know it doesn't take proof. It just takes a crowd." He stood up, brushed imaginary dust from his sleeves. "I'm just advising. Be watchful. Be wise. And if anything strange starts happening, shut it down early, before they come for you." He left, leaving her hands trembling in soapy water. That night, in her tiny apartment, Aule barely ate. She sat near the window, arms wrapped around her knees, while her daughter, Edasiri, slept on a mat beside her. When her daughter stirred in her sleep and murmured, "Mummy, are you scared?" she didn't respond. Because yes, she was. She had seen him before, always in the shadows, just a blur through the side of her vision, peeking out from behind the mortuary's water tank or watching her from the edge of the fence while she stirred her sauce. He was thin, young, quiet, maybe 16, always wearing the same gray shirt and rubber slippers, dragging a mop or wheeling a gurney. For weeks, she pretended not to notice him, until one morning she found him sitting behind her canteen, crouched low, eating leftover spaghetti directly from a foil pack. He didn't even look guilty, just tired. "Who are you?" she asked. He stood quickly, brushing his hands against his shorts. "Sorry, I didn't steal it. It was in the trash." "You work at the mortuary?" He nodded. "My name is Ogaga." There was something in his eyes. Not fear, not shame. Something that looked like understanding. "Why are you eating behind here?" she asked. "Because it's the only place that feels alive." That answer stopped her. She wanted to say something, to ask what he meant. But he'd already started walking away. Over the next few days, Ogaga lingered more often. He never spoke much, but he always watched. One afternoon, as Awale was closing up, he appeared again. This time, he held out something, a folded piece of paper. She hesitated before taking it. It was a list, handwritten. 10 names. Some were familiar. One was a woman who had eaten at her shop twice and suddenly died the previous week from what her neighbors called a strange stroke. Another was a mechanic from down the road who collapsed at church 3 days after refusing to pay for his food. At the bottom of the paper, Ogaga had scribbled, "They all passed through the mortuary, and they all ate here." She stared at him, horrified. "Are you trying to blame me?" He shook his head. "I'm trying to warn you. Something is not normal here. People are dying, but it's not your food. It's something else, something that likes being close to you." "You sound insane." "Maybe, but so do most people right before they're proven right." And with that, he disappeared again, swallowed by the white walls of the mortuary. The crowd began gathering even before she opened her pots. A woman in a blue wrapper stood across the street, arms folded, her mouth sharp with anger. Behind her were 2 other women, whispering and pointing. By the time the sun was fully up, 10 people were watching Awale, but no one was buying. It was when the woman marched forward and slammed her hand on the wooden counter that everything erupted. "You! Yes, you! What exactly are you putting inside this food?" Awale blinked. "Excuse me?" "My husband is in the hospital. He started hallucinating after eating your spaghetti. He said he saw a coffin under his plate. He screamed your name all night. I'm sorry, but you are killing people. You are cooking with human parts. What kind of woman opens a food shop beside a mortuary? Are you normal?" Her voice was loud, sharp, designed to draw attention. And it worked. People stopped walking. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Yes! I saw a rat in her suya last week." She didn't even sell suya. Another woman added, "She smiles too much for someone who works beside death." The energy shifted from suspicion to rage. A plastic bottle was thrown. Someone kicked her signboard. Children laughed. Adults stared. Her daughter, watching from the back, began to cry. Awale stood still, her palms on the edge of the table, her breath shallow. She didn't defend herself, didn't shout, didn't plead. She simply closed her pot, stepped around the table, and walked away, past the crowd, past the rumors, past the accusations. She walked all the way home and sat on the floor in the darkness for 2 hours. That evening, Edisiri sat beside her trying to braid a doll's hair with trembling fingers. "Mummy, are we going to leave again?" "I don't know." "Did you do something wrong?" She turned to her daughter, her voice hollow. "I only fed them. I only cooked." "Then why are they angry?" "Because sometimes, when people don't understand something, they choose to hate it." Edisiri leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong, Mummy." For the first time in weeks, Aule cried, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but because she knew something was coming, something big, something she couldn't stop, and in the stillness of the night, with the city buzzing faintly outside, she whispered, "God, whatever this is, don't let it destroy me before it reveals itself." Aule did not sleep that night. After the public embarrassment, the accusations, the eyes filled with judgment, she was ready to give up. But something in her heart wouldn't let her. By 5 a.m., she was sitting on her mattress, holding her daughter's hand, staring at the ceiling. What kind of world punishes a woman for feeding people? But just as she whispered those words to herself, there was a soft knock on her door. She hesitated. Who would knock this early? She opened it slightly. It was a delivery man, young, with earbuds in and a phone in his hand. He barely looked up. "Delivery for Osabor." "I didn't order anything," she said, confused. "Paid already," the boy replied, dropped the box and walked away. She carried it inside, unwrapped the layers, and gasped. Inside was a brand new cooking gas cylinder, a set of custom stainless cooking spoons, and 50 printed branded nylon bags with the words Aule Spaghetti Spot, Asaba's best hidden secret. Her lips parted. There was no sender's name, no message, no clue. Just a small folded paper tucked beneath the nylon bags. On it, in carefully written penmanship, were these words: "Don't close your kitchen. You've fed more than stomachs. Some of us remember, some of us never forgot." That was the moment her soul stood up again. Whatever this was, whoever it came from, it was enough. She cleaned her eyes, bathed her daughter, carried her pots and her courage, and returned to her canteen. She reopened her shop with no fanfare, no apology, no announcement. But something had shifted. That morning, a man in a Toyota Corolla pulled up with his son. He asked for 2 plates, ate one, and took the other to go. He didn't ask about the mortuary behind her. He just said, "Someone told me this is where peace tastes like food." By 10 a.m., a banker from Okpanam came. Then 2 officers on lunch break. Then a couple arguing in their car, who stopped, entered separately, and left smiling. One by one they came. No one asked about the mortuary anymore. In fact, some customers seemed to look right past it, like it didn't even exist. Mama Ejiro, the Akara seller who once mocked her, now peeked through the curtain of her own shop in disbelief. Why does her pot never finish? Why is she smiling again? Who is backing her? What none of them knew, what not even Aule herself fully understood, was that this moment was never random. Weeks earlier, during one of her early days in business, on a rainy Thursday when she had only sold 2 plates all morning, a strange man had entered her canteen. He was elderly, dressed in neat but faded traditional wear, with skin so pale it looked like old paper. He had ordered food but never touched it. He had sat for over an hour, staring ahead, eyes empty. Aule, uncomfortable, finally approached. "Sir, is everything all right?" He looked up slowly and whispered, "Do you remember me?" She frowned. "Have we met?" He smiled. "You served me when no one else would. You didn't flinch. You didn't turn me away." He stood up and reached into his wrapper, pulling out a worn leather pouch. "You didn't know then, but you were feeding someone the world had forgotten." He placed the pouch beside the untouched plate and left. When she opened it, it was empty. But that same day, her sales tripled. And from that day on, every time she wanted to give up, something pulled her back. What she didn't know was, the man never came from the road. He came through the back gate of the mortuary. Back in the present, something strange happened that very afternoon. At exactly 2:42 p.m., the electric lights inside the mortuary flickered, on and off, 3 times. Some staff ran outside, complaining about faulty power. But Aule, standing at her canteen, just paused. Because the moment the lights flickered, 3 new customers walked in. each one new to the city, unfamiliar with the gossip, but all of them saying, "Someone told me your food helped them sleep better. My friend said this is the only food that tastes like home. Your name came up in the hospital. I don't know why." She served them with a steady smile. But inside, she was shaking. Something was shifting. And she didn't know how to explain it. That night, after she closed her shop and returned home, she found a letter slipped under her door. No stamp, no name, just folded paper. She opened it slowly, heart pounding. The handwriting was rough, like someone who had been shaking while writing. "Dear Aule, I was one of the men who helped bury my brother in that mortuary 5 years ago. He was accused of stealing, beaten, and left without a name. But someone told me that a woman now sells food beside the place, and the smell is the same scent my brother used to love. So I came, I ate, I cried, because for the first time in 5 years, I felt like he wasn't forgotten. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Some people build cathedrals. You built a kitchen, but both serve souls." Tears rolled down her cheeks, not just because of the letter, but because that night, as she lay beside her daughter, she had a dream. In it, a long line of people, smiling, peaceful, quiet, stood beside her canteen, and one by one, each placed a white flower at her feet. She woke up with a white petal on her pillow. The morning sun rose with grace, but there was no warmth in Madame Elahor's heart. She sat in front of her faded jollof rice table, arms folded tightly under her sagging breasts, her face twisted in quiet resentment as she watched the growing queue in front of Aule's canteen. It made no sense. "How can someone cook beside death and still feed half the town?" she muttered bitterly. She had been selling food on that street for over 7 years. She was the first to arrive every morning. She knew the taste of firewood, the weight of Maggie, the balance of pepper and stew. But then Aule came, beautiful, soft-spoken, never raising her voice, and within months, her own customers started disappearing. At first, she tried to ignore it, but then her soups began to spoil before noon. Her meat tasted rubbery. People whispered that her stew had lost glory. By the 3rd month, she barely sold anything before packing up in frustration. She tried everything, reduced her prices, offered extra meat, even gave free water. But it didn't help. "That woman has done something," she told her friend bitterly one evening. "She's using something. There's no way she can stand beside a mortuary and still have this kind of blessing." So she decided to fight it spiritually. Not with prayer, not with fasting, with rituals. One early morning, while the sky was still pink and the dew wet the gravel road, Madame Elahor went to Okpanam Forest, where an infamous native woman named Iyeadu was known to shut down destinies with just a glance. "There," she cried bitterly. "I want her business gone. Let her pot dry up. Let maggots crawl from her stew. Let her shame be public." Iyeadu handed her a small clay pot. "If her rise came through humans, we will stop her. But if spirits are backing her—" She paused, looked into the fire. "Then you must fight spirit with spirit, or use humans who carry shadow in their mouth." Elahor left with a warning. "Do not fail to send someone inside her pot, or all your efforts will turn back to you." The next day, a young girl named Sonia appeared at Aule's shop. Pretty, slim, polite, with a soft voice and a smile that could melt steel. "Good morning, Ma," she greeted Aule shyly. "Please, I'm new in this town. I just came from Agbor. I need work. I can wash plates, serve customers. I don't need much." Aule looked at her kindly. She reminded her of her younger self, humble, desperate, eager to start somewhere. "What's your name?" "Sonia." "Where are you staying?" "With a friend, just near the health center." Aule didn't know she was being watched from across the street. Madame Elahor smiled from behind her cooler of untouched jollof rice. "Yes, Now let's see if your pot will still stand. Sonia worked well. At first, she was quick, efficient, never late. Customers liked her smile. Edisiri, Awele's daughter, laughed more when she was around. Even Awele began to rest more, trusting her enough to leave the front for short market runs. But it only took 6 days. 6 days before the nightmare began. It was a bright Monday afternoon. The queue was long. Children were laughing. The aroma of onions and peppers filled the air. Then it happened. A man in a blue shirt opened his takeaway and screamed, "What is this?" He flung the spaghetti into the air. Maggots. Long, white, alive, crawling through the strands like snakes. A woman screamed. A child threw up. Customers panicked. "What kind of shop is this? This is not ordinary. Is this what we've been eating? Did it come from the mortuary?" Phones came out. Videos were recorded. Ole stood frozen. She had checked that pot herself. It was clean. It was safe. She turned to Sonia, who had served the man. The girl looked just as shocked. "I don't know how. I swear," Sonia stammered. But the damage was done. Within minutes, the crowd vanished. The street fell silent. Sonia went to the back, claiming to be dizzy. Aule didn't follow. Instead, she sat on a low stool and wept. Not quietly, not politely. She wept like someone whose soul had been splashed with shame in public. And across the road, Elahor smiled again. "Spaghetti, your time has expired." That night, Awele sat in darkness. No pot, no customer, no hope. Edisiri sat beside her, holding her hand. "Mummy, are we going to stop now?" She didn't answer, until something strange happened. A knock, slow, calm, barely audible. She opened the door. No one was there, but at her doorstep sat a single plate covered with foil and a folded note. The plate was empty, but clean. The note read, "You fed me when I had nothing. You fed me when I had no name. Now they try to feed your shame, but I will not watch. Tomorrow, let no one serve your food but you. Let the truth meet the pot." There was no name, but she knew. The next day, Aule rose before dawn. She swept. She prayed. She cooked, by herself. No Sonia, no assistant. She told her daughter to stay inside. She lit incense near her window. She tied her hair with a white scarf. By 9 a.m., customers were standing across the road, unsure, hesitant, staring. By 9:15, one brave man stepped forward. "Did you cook today?" She nodded. "Just you?" She nodded again. He sat, ate, finished the plate, licked his fingers. Still the best spaghetti in Delta State. One by one, customers returned, slow, careful. But they came. By 11:30, her pot was almost empty. And that was when Sonia appeared, standing in front of the canteen, eyes full of shame, sweat on her brow. "Madam, I need to tell you the truth." The crowd turned. Silence. "I'm not from Agbor. I've lived here all my life. I was sent by someone. Madam Elahor. She told me to destroy your food. She gave me things to put inside the pot. I'm sorry. I didn't know how strong you were. I didn't know spirits were backing you." Gasps. Phones clicked. Customers murmured. "Please forgive me," Sonia wept. Aule looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "I already did. But the spirits you tried to deceive may not be so quick." Sonia ran. That evening, the entire street buzzed. "Did you hear? The spaghetti woman forgave the girl. They said the girl almost collapsed before she confessed. They said the jollof rice woman fainted when she heard what happened. Then when she woke up, she left that area with shame and disgrace. By weekend, Awele's queue was longer than ever. Customers begged her to add more to the menu. She did. She began selling yam porridge beans and plantain rice and stew moi moi wrapped in leaves. Her name spread beyond Asaba. And once again, she stood. But something was coming. Something she hadn't prepared for. because one quiet afternoon, as she was serving food near closing time, she looked up and saw a familiar face approaching slowly. Monday Obasogi, her ex-husband, thinner, pale, his neck wrapped with white gauze stained with blood, his eyes lost. He looked like a man who had been hunted by death, and he whispered, "Ole, please, help me." The world paused when Monday Obasogi walked into Awole's canteen. His feet were dragging, his skin had lost its glow. His eyes, once sharp and calculating, now looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks, and his neck, wrapped in white cloth, soaked with dried, dark blood. He stood before the canteen trembling. Customers stopped chewing. Conversations froze. Ada Siri, now taller and sharper than before, ran into the shop and stood behind her mother, confused and cautious. Aule didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared at the man who once beat her till she bled, the man who nearly destroyed her, now reduced to a whisper of who he used to be. "Ole," he croaked, barely standing. "I heard. You made it. I heard. Your name is everywhere. I came to say..." He coughed, hard. Blood stained the edge of his shirt. "Help me. Not please. Not I'm sorry. Just help me." Aule looked at him for a long, painful moment. "You knew where to find me." He nodded. "They brought me here, in a dream. They said, 'You're the only one who's ever fed them.' They said if I want to live, I should eat your food. Before it's too late." The crowd around the shop stirred uneasily. "Who are they?" someone whispered. He shook his head. "I don't know, but every night I see them, dressed in white. They don't speak. They just stand around my bed, staring. And if I try to sleep, they pull my soul." Aule sighed, deep, heavy. Then she turned. She scooped a plate of plain white rice and vegetables, no meat, no pepper, just food made with peace. She placed it before him. "Eat," she said. Monday ate in silence, and when he finished, he wept like a child. That night, Aule couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring at the mortuary behind her shop. The place she once feared, then ignored, and now respected deeply. She didn't understand everything, but something in her spirit whispered, "You are not just feeding the living." And now, the truth was ready to come. By the next morning, Monday had collapsed in front of the shop. He was rushed to the nearby clinic. The nurses called Aule as his only known relative. She went reluctantly and sat beside his hospital bed. The doctor pulled her aside. "Madam, we don't understand this. His body is shutting down, but not from disease. It's almost like his blood is rejecting him, like his spirit is no longer welcome here." She said nothing. She returned to his bedside, sat quietly, and watched him sleep. When he woke up, he didn't speak immediately. Then he whispered, "Do you remember the year we lost everything? When the factory shut down and Mama died?" She nodded slowly. "I went to a place in Benin. Someone told me if I wanted to rise again, I had to give something." Her breath caught. "They said I needed to feed the dead, that if I starved them, they'd starve me in return. But if I kept them fed, they'd keep me rich." He coughed again. "But I couldn't do it. I was too afraid. I left that covenant half done. They warned me. If someone else came along and fed them with love, the blessings meant for me would go to them instead." Aule stared at him. "So you mean to say, you opened a door, then left it, and now I'm the one they chose to complete the assignment?" He nodded weakly. "You didn't even know, but they accepted you. Because you didn't feed them for gain, you fed them with mercy." His voice broke. "That's why I'm dying. Because they no longer need me. They have you now." Aule stood. "And you came here, hoping I would do what? Cancel the contract you signed in secret, break a chain I never joined?" He reached for her hand. "No, I just came to eat. Before I go." She walked away and never returned to the hospital again. Weeks passed. The scandal was long gone. The rumors had faded. Sonia had disappeared from town. Madame Elahor's shop was now up for rent, after people said they saw her cooking alone and talking to no one. Awolay's Canteen? It became a landmark. Buses now stopped there by name. YouTube food vloggers from Lagos came to film her. She employed 2 full-time staff. She opened a small branch beside the university gate. But she never left the mortuary. She remained rooted to that sacred ground, where her journey began. And one day, she finally understood why. She was wiping her table when an old man appeared, the same man from her early days, pale, quiet, dressed in soft white. He sat without speaking. She brought him food, as she always had. As he finished, he looked up and said, "We never asked for much, just to not be forgotten." He placed his hand over hers. "Since you came, we've never been hungry. We've never been ignored. And because of you, many of us found peace." She blinked slowly. "Who are you?" He smiled. "We are the ones you served unknowingly, the ones who blessed your pot with memory, with laughter, with presence, with mystery." He stood. "When people asked why you thrived near death, it's because you honored the unseen." Then he vanished. No goodbye, no name, just a final smile. That night, Awolay served her last customer for the day. She wiped her pot. She sat beside her daughter, and together they shared a small plate of spaghetti. "Mummy," Edasiri said softly, "do you think the dead still eat with us?" Awolay smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe they just sit near us, grateful they're remembered." She looked at the mortuary behind them, the windows glowing faintly under the moonlight. "Either way," she said, "I'll keep cooking. Not for profit, not for fame, but because no one, dead or alive, should go to sleep hungry." The moral of the story: never underestimate the power of kindness, even when no one is watching. Sometimes the hands you feed in silence are the ones that fight for you in realms you cannot see.